Do we ever get that feeling you're being watched while traveling in a new country? That prickly sensation on the back of your neck that tells you something just isn't right. Most of the time, it's just our nerves playing tricks on us. But sometimes, that feeling is a warning. Today, we're diving deep into 3 verified bone-chilling horror stories from travelers who found themselves in situations straight out of a nightmare. These aren't campfire tales. They're real incidents that happen to real people, far from the comfort of home. So, lock your doors, check your windows, and get ready, because these stories will make you think twice about your next trip abroad. Our first story takes us to the bustling streets of Southeast Asia, a popular destination for backpackers seeking adventure. A young woman named Chloe was on a solo trip, soaking in the culture and enjoying her newfound freedom. One evening, after exploring a local night market, she hailed a tuk-tuk to take her back to a hostel. The driver was friendly, perhaps a little too friendly, making small talk and asking a lot of personal questions. Chloe, trying to be polite, answered vaguely, but as they drove, she realized they weren't on the main road anymore. The vibrant city lights were replaced by dark, winding alleyways. Her heart began to pound. She pulled out her phone to check the map, and her blood ran cold. They were heading in the complete opposite direction of her hostel, deeper into an unfamiliar, residential area. She calmly asked the driver where he was going. He just smiled in the rearview mirror and said, "Shortcut, Miss Faster." But there was nothing fast about it. The tuk-tuk slowed to a crawl. Chloe knew she was in trouble. Her mind raced. Should she jump out? Scream for help? The streets were deserted. She noticed he kept glancing at her backpack where she kept her passport and money. Thinking quickly, she pretended to get a sudden, violent stomach cramp. She moaned in pain, clutching her stomach and begging him to stop at a pharmacy. She made it sound urgent, like a medical emergency. The driver seemed annoyed, but the prospect of dealing with a sick tourist was probably more trouble than it was worth. He reluctantly pulled over near a small, dimly lit shop. The second the tuk-tuk stopped, Chloe didn't hesitate. She threw some money on the seat, grabbed her bag, and bolted. She ran without looking back, her lungs burning, until she found a brightly lit main street and flagged down a different taxi, shaking and crying. She never found out the driver's true intentions, but she knows she narrowly escaped something terrible. It's a terrifying reminder to always trust your gut and have an escape plan, even in a seemingly safe situation. Next, we traveled to the picturesque countryside of Eastern Europe. A couple, Mark and Sarah, decided to rent a charming rustic cabin for a romantic getaway. It was isolated, surrounded by a dense, ancient forest, the perfect escape from city life. The first night was magical. They built a fire, enjoyed the serene silence, and felt completely at peace. The second night, however, things took a sinister turn. Around midnight, they were jolted awake by a loud thud against the side of the cabin. They brushed it off as a falling branch or an animal. But then it happened again, harder this time and again. It sounded like someone was deliberately throwing large rocks at their walls. Mark peered through the window but saw nothing but inky blackness. A wave of fear washed over them. They were miles from the nearest town, with no cell service. They turned off all the lights and sat in silence, listening. The thudding stopped, but a new sound began, a slow, deliberate scratching at the front door. It was the sound of fingernails, or maybe something sharper, dragging across the wood. They held their breath, too scared to even move. The scratching went on for what felt like an eternity before it finally stopped. For the rest of the night, they sat huddled together, armed with a fireplace poker, waiting for the sun to rise. As soon as dawn broke, they packed their bags in a frenzy and fled. On their way out, they saw it. Scratched deep into the wooden door were strange, unsettling symbols they didn't recognize. To this day, they don't know who or what was outside their cabin that night. Was it a prank? A local trying to scare tourists? Or something far more ancient and malevolent lurking in those woods? They never went back to find out. Our final story is perhaps the most unnerving of all, as it happened in a place where you're supposed to feel secure, a hotel. A businessman, let's call him David, was on a work trip in a major South American city. He checked into a reputable high-end hotel and went up to his room on the 15th floor. The room was standard, clean, and had a small balcony overlooking the city. After a long day of meetings, he returned to his room, locked the door, and got ready for bed. He fell asleep quickly, exhausted from his travels. In the middle of the night, he was woken by a faint clicking sound. Half asleep, he thought. It might be the air conditioning. He tried to ignore it, but the sound was persistent. Click, click, click. It sounded like it was coming from inside the room. His eyes slowly adjusted to the dark. He scanned the room, and his heart stopped. The door to his balcony, which he was certain he had locked, was slightly ajar. And standing just inside the room, silhouetted against the city lights, was a figure. A person was standing perfectly still, just a few feet from his bed, watching him. David was paralyzed with fear. He didn't breathe. He didn't move a muscle. He just lay there, pretending to be asleep, his mind screaming. Who was this person? How did they get in? The 15th floor balcony was inaccessible from the outside. The person stood there for what felt like hours, a silent, menacing presence in the dark. David could hear their soft, steady breathing. Finally, as the first hints of dawn began to light up the sky, the figure turned, slipped silently back out onto the balcony, and closed the door behind them. David lay frozen until the sun was fully up. He then leaped out of bed, checked the balcony. It was empty. He called hotel security immediately. They were baffled. There were no signs of forced entry on his main door or the balcony door. The only explanation they could offer was that the intruder might have been another guest who somehow accessed his balcony from an adjacent one. But there were no reports. David checked out that morning, his sense of security completely shattered. The image of that silent figure watching him sleep is something that will haunt him forever. These stories aren't meant to scare you away from traveling. The world is a beautiful place full of wonderful people and experiences. But they are a stark reminder that we must always remain vigilant, aware of our surroundings and prepared for the unexpected. Sometimes, the most frightening monsters aren't ghosts or ghouls, but the real-life dangers that can find you when you're most vulnerable. It's crucial to listen to that inner voice, that gut feeling that tells you when something is wrong. Stay safe out there, and never take your security for granted. What did you think of these stories? Have you ever had a scary experience while traveling abroad? Share your own stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this video and want more true scary stories, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.